I think we have a really great group that's representing all different aspects of child life, which is amazing. And sometimes it's really difficult to get people in all different areas of the field. So this is wonderful. I think to start off, there was a lot of questions that came in about how to get certified, what courses qualify, all of that kind of clumped into one. So I don't know if you guys, the panelists, want to kind of talk through maybe what path you took.
I can start if you want. I actually learned about child life, let's see, I guess 23 years, going on 24 years ago. So I feel like back then it was still a fairly new field in regards to if people asked what you did and you said child life, they had no idea what you're talking about. But the way I became informed about it was this exact way. Someone came and spoke to our HDFS class about it. And I realized I really liked the idea of working with kids, but not in the hospital. So I stayed in child development family studies and then did a practicum with Carle Hospital before, when it just had one pediatric unit of like 12 beds, I believe, and volunteered there, and then went on to do my internship with the University of Chicago Children's Hospital, Comer. And I think I was one of the last years they allowed undergrads and not master level candidates to do internships there. So I went on from there, and then within a year started the program with St. Vincent Children's Hospital in Indianapolis.
That's awesome. Yes. I'm also going to put, sorry, just briefly, I'm going to put the ACLP website link in the chat section for all of you, because it might have more information that you're seeking as well. Sorry, go ahead and chime in, though, other panelists. I'm sure you have great advice for them.
I can go next. I also did a practicum at Carle Hospital when I was in undergrad. I did a lot of volunteer work there in the pediatric unit, and then I also did my practicum there, and then I went on to my master's at Erickson Institute in Chicago, and when I was there, we took coursework and everything, and I also completed a practicum at the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center, which is a center for children who go after a sexual abuse. So they receive therapy services there as well as forensic interviews, and they have a child life team that works there. So that was a pretty unique experience. And then I did my child life internship also at Comer, Traci. So we have a similar path there. And yeah, so that's kind of how I went through my certification process. I also am part of Camp Kids Are Kids Chicago, which is a pediatric oncology summer camp program. And I'm our assistant director for that program. So it's great for volunteer hours too, for anyone who's interested, especially now because everything's virtual. So it's super easy to volunteer. So I can also put the link for our website in the chat. So if anyone's interested,
say that. Thank you.
They can check it out.
So that's a great point to make, that Katie went and did was it your internship at CAC or volunteering? Sorry, volunteering.
I did a practicum there. So it was, we at Erickson, I think this was this was just a separate one. I think we have at Erickson, you have to have like 2 semesters of internship. I just did this separate because my Comer internship was able to be split into part-time for 2 semesters, so it would count for that. But I think like Katie did something different when she was at Erickson, so I can let her speak to her experience.
Yeah, so I feel like Meagan could probably talk more to like the current like courses or like different ways to go about it, because I know when I was going through child life and trying to like figure out whether I wanted to get my master's or not, they were still talking about needing that in order to have a job. And so that definitely like informed my decision to go on and get my master's degree. And so while at Erickson, they were able to, they like helped us with making sure we had all the courses lined up. So I didn't have to, I know some students go to like different universities to try to find the courses that fit in within the requirements and things like that. So I was very fortunate to not need to do that because they like really set it up pretty well for us. As to like internships and practicums and volunteer experience, I kind of had a wide variety of both like and also experiences within the hospital and at different areas. speaking to like internships, I did do mine at Central DuPage, and then I also did one at Cole Children's Museum, which was kind of interesting. And I worked alongside with like the education team to like put together programs, and like we facilitated like a mommy and me class. So it's kind of a different like take, but also definitely very like applicable to child life. And I think that's kind of like the cool part about child life is as you gather all these different experiences, you're able to like apply it to kind of what you're doing, as long as like you're working with kids and families, because it all is very intertwined is what I've like learned throughout my career so far.
Very much. Go ahead, Meagan.
Yeah, I would definitely just echo that with some of these other kinds of experiences outside of hospitals, especially right now. We're in a pandemic. Volunteering in hospitals is not available most places. I can't speak to, specifically your geographic area, but what we're hearing at ACLP nationally is that most places do not have volunteers in hospitals. But all of these other kinds of experiences with children and families, whether it's virtual or if there are some things that are available in person in your community, are really valuable. One of the things that I think is really important is just, as child life specialists, part of what we do is look for regression as a result of the stress and trauma of hospitalization. And you can't identify regression if you don't really know what typical development looks like. In terms of my pathway, it's very similar to other people, did a practicum at Carl, all those things. But I'm going to focus a little bit more on what is required from ACLP for certification, because it's quite different now than it was when I went through the process and when I think some of our other panelists did. So I want to make sure you have that information. We require a minimum of a bachelor's degree. What that degree is in is open. What we do look at is the coursework within that degree. So there are 10 specific courses that we're looking for, including a child life course taught by a certified child life specialist, child development coursework, family systems coursework, play, bereavement, research methods, and then other elective courses that are in that realm. We recommend things like ethics, medical terminology, anatomy, physiology, I believe, is on there as well. But it can be additional child development coursework, additional family systems, things like that. We also look at the internship. So that is something that is required for certification, that you complete a 600-hour internship under the supervision of an experienced certified child life specialist. That is required. You heard many of us refer to a practicum. I think this is where sometimes things can get confusing in the path to child life, because there are the minimum requirements to become certified, but then there are some de facto requirements that, maybe you need in order to be competitive to get an internship or some of these other experiences. So a lot of these volunteer hours, a lot of these practicums, they aren't things that we look at ACLP. They're never anything that you submit to us, but it's things that are important to the hospitals that are evaluating your internship application to see, do you have the knowledge to be ready to take on the internship? It's what they're looking at. So it's really important, if this is something that you're going to pursue, to start taking a look at hospitals you might be interested in interning with and seeing what their specific requirements are, because it does vary pretty significantly from hospital to hospital. Some of the panelists that are hospital-based might be able to give a little bit more detail about that, at least in their locations, but every hospital is a little different. So I encourage you to start thinking early about that. I'm going to post a link in the chat as well that has all of the eligibility requirements laid out. So you can see that, refer back to that. Also, if you ever have certification questions, that is a big part of what we do at ACLP. You can contact us anytime. You can contact me. I'm not always the right person for certification questions, but by all means, I will get you to the right person.
Yes, that's perfect. And at U of I, we also have kind of the identified courses that you need. kind of laid out for you. So if you ever have any questions too, oh, thank you so much, Meagan, for putting that in there. If you ever have any questions, absolutely reach out to the ACLP or Barbara or myself, and we can help guide you through that path, because just as Meagan said, it is very confusing. And I've told many of you to start with the internship sites, which seems crazy, right? But it does help. So that's good to hear that directly from a staff member at ACLP. Okay, so some of the next questions, maybe this is a good transition, but people want to know, like, what is a day in the life in your role as a child life specialist in the environment that you're working in? So whether that's the ACLP, the emergency department, what does that kind of look like for you?
I can speak again to that. So the ER is like kind of, you just never know what's going to happen. So yeah, every day is really different, which is part of why I like the job. In my role at Advocate, I work 3 12-hour shifts. So I work noon to midnight. So it's like it's a longer shift, but I get 4 days off. So it's kind of nice for some work-life balance to work some longer shifts and then have more days off. But basically in the ER, a lot of what I'm doing is pre-procedural education. So a lot of like preparation, coping support, and a lot of procedural support. So we do have trauma service in our emergency department. So sometimes it's responding to traumas, lots of classic ER visits with broken bones and surgery prep for like appendicitis or, you know, any kind of emergent surgery, lots and lots and lots of IVs. So that's kind of a lot of what I do. And then also just like the basic, you know, making sure kids have activities and things like that to keep them busy and help normalize the hospital experience to make it a little bit less scary for them. Even if it's just helping like normalize the like the environment so that we can get like a set of vitals on a kid. That's kind of some of the role that I do. And then also in the chance that there's bereavement, I also do bereavement support in our emergency department. Luckily at Advocate, we're lucky to have like 24-hour chaplain services and pediatric trained chaplains as well that are really involved with those kind of end-of-life circumstances. So that's also something that's really, I feel really grateful to have that support because we didn't have that at my last hospital. And I can speak, anyone else who's been in child life with an end-of-life situation, it's always nice to have someone else who is familiar with doing that work too. So although those are small cases, it is like something that you kind of think about while you're in the ER, I would say too.
Great, thank you.